Welcome to Mark's British Airways Fleet Update, looking at short and long-haul fleets.
It's time once again for the British Airways Fleet Update here on Mark's Trains, Planes and Trams. We'll be looking at all the latest developments across the short and long-haul fleets, including the CityFlyer and EuroFlyer subsidiaries. Make sure you like this video and drop us your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to my channel and click for notifications. Now, let's get going with this week's update.
And on the British Airways Fleet Update this week, we talk about improvements and stability emerging on the A380 and the 787 fleet, so that's good news. The long-haul fleet at Gatwick has also settled down, but sadly another collision on the ground between an aircraft and some ground baggage equipment at Nice airport, with the aircraft still stranded at Nice. So kick off with the CityFlyer fleet and the Embraer 190s that fly normally out of London City Airport, but Lima Charlie Alpha Echo flew back from Exeter, but it was Sunday morning last week. It couldn't land at London City because it's closed for Sunday morning, so it flew the CityFlyer 9761 back to Stansted and then picked up work as the BA 7309 Stansted to Ibiza. Lima Charlie Alpha Golf diverted because of weather to London Southend on the 19th of July while operating the BA 8472 from Florence. Should have flown into London City, but after diverting to Southend, the aircraft remained on the ground overnight and worked the CityFlyer 9760 the next day. And similarly, a Lima Charlie Yankee Kilo diverted the next day to Southend as the BA 3298 from Nice should have flown to London City, diverted to Southend and then remained on the ground overnight. CityFlyer 9760 again on the 21st back to London City. And Lima Charlie Alpha Charlie operated the CityFlyer 9771 to Exeter back as the 9773 on the 17th of July. Usually the aircraft are going down for maintenance, but that day it was pilot circuit training around Exeter. On the Gatwick-based EuroFlyer fleet, no real update for aircraft out for maintenance, but we talked last time about the drama that had surrounded Golf Alpha Tango Romeo with depressurization events, 2 in a row. Those repairs we talked about, the test flight to Cardiff and back, all appears well. That was effective. The aircraft was resumed normal commercial flights. And just a reminder, we're in that transition period of 5 aircraft moving across from Heathrow Mainline to Gatwick EuroFlyer. We've already got Uniform Victor, Uniform X-Ray, Uniform Yankee in the Gatwick fleet, Uniform Whiskey, Uniform Zulu expected to transfer shortly, and there'll probably be a couple of withdrawals from the Gatwick fleet as a consequence, and we understand that Uniform Tango will be added to the list in the autumn. Now, with the various shenanigans around Tango Romeo and 1 or 2 other aircraft not being available, British Airways has had to strengthen its lease position with Titan Airways, and there's also been a swap of aircraft. So a little bit of news in this respect. Papa Oscar Whiskey Mike, which is a Titan A320, that ended its longer term wet lease to British Airways EuroFlyer at Gatwick and flew under the call sign of another airline back to Stansted on the 18th of July. Papa Oscar Whiskey Kilo had undertaken a few ad hoc EuroFlyer flights during the month, but joined for a longer interim period on the 18th of July, obviously replacing the sister aircraft Whiskey Mike. Its first operation was BA 2640 back as the 2641 Gatwick to Malaga and back on the 18th, and it's continued to fly for EuroFlyer since then. And the Airbus A321 Oscar Alpha Tango Whiskey from the Titan Airways fleet, that completed a wet lease to British Airways EuroFlyer on the 21st of July, and that had been with them since the 17th. Over to London Heathrow, the mainline Airbus fleet will Echo Uniform Charlie returned from maintenance at Glasgow. Did that as they often but not always do in service shuttle 7 Sierra, the BA 1475 on the 17th of July. Tango Oscar Bravo flew up on an empty dead flight BA 9276 to Glasgow on the 7th, remains under maintenance. Tango November Romeo on the 19th remains under maintenance. And November Echo Oscar Victor flew up and was swapped with that first aircraft we spoke about. Echo Uniform Charlie. So that Airbus A321 flew up a Shuttle 6 Alpha remaining there under maintenance, and November Echo Oscar Uniform and Airbus A321 remains under maintenance at Malta, been there, as we said last time, since the 7th of July. And that drama I spoke about in the introduction to this show, Airbus A320 Echo Uniform Yankee Delta arrived at Nice Côte d'Azur Airport as the BA 332 from London Heathrow on the 24th of July during the aircraft turnaround in preparation for its return to London Heathrow. A baggage unloading machine was driven straight into the engine nacelle. Visible damage, as you can see from the video here on the screen that appeared on TikTok, and the return flight, the BA 333, was cancelled. The aircraft remains on the ground over 48 hours later. So my understanding is they're doing an assessment of the damage, and quite simply that aircraft will either have to stay at Nice while they find a way to undertake repairs, or they'll give it special authorization to fly back to London Heathrow, or possibly somewhere else in damaged condition, and they can then get on with repairs. Now, I've updated the slides that talk about new aircraft deliveries. Talking of aircraft damaged, it's amazing how much disruption British Airways does actually face, over time, from aircraft that are damaged on the ground through sort of careless vehicle movements, road traffic vehicles. Occasionally it's people pulling or pushing other aircraft, but brand new A320 Tango Sierra Bravo, which should have been delivered much earlier in 2025. It looks like they're moving towards a conclusion in repairing that aircraft after damage earlier in the year, and it should be delivered in November, but that's still some time off. Tango Sierra Golf is expected to be delivered from Hamburg Finkenwerder next month. Tango Sierra Hotel delivery from Toulouse in October, and then on the Airbus A321s, 2 of those under pre-flight preparation in Hamburg Finkenwerder. Tango November Echo India expected in October, as is Tango November Echo Juliet. So 5 aircraft, and when they arrive, that will allow BA to start withdrawing some of the older aircraft, mainly the Airbus A319s that are lined up for withdrawal. Moving across to the long-haul fleet that operates for BA out of London Heathrow, Airbus A350s, X-Ray Whiskey Bravo Alpha remains under maintenance at Bordeaux. It's been there for 5 or 6 weeks now, so obviously quite a major check, and it's worth pointing out that Bravo Alpha, of course, is the first of the A350s in the British Airways fleet to be delivered, so it's almost certainly got the most hours, the most cycles, and therefore this is obviously quite a major check that is due, and we would anticipate seeing the other aircraft heading off for this check in rotation. Now, we also know, of course, that British Airways has authorised quite a large amount of capital investment to its maintenance facility down at Cardiff, so we can also expect at some point to see this work transition from Places like Bordeaux, we know they've also been using Malta back to Cardiff. But of course, the other challenge at Cardiff is that they are quite busy getting on with Club Suites fitment, and they've still got another five or six, I think, 787-8s to do, and then they've got the 18 787-9s. And if they're doing two of those at a time, that does take up quite a large chunk of the capacity at the Cardiff facility. But in the longer term, get this work done at Heathrow or at Cardiff is clearly the BA ambition. X-Ray Whiskey Bravo Bravo been out of use at London Heathrow since the 22nd of July. And some much better news with the Airbus A380s. They seem in a much stronger position. And I think some evidence emerging that perhaps they'll be in a stronger position on a more consistent basis. And I'll explain why. So on the last episode, I updated on the saga of X-Ray Lima Echo Bravo, and that aircraft emerged, as I said, last Saturday night on the 19th of July. It flew the BA 57 to Johannesburg. Now, prior to that, the only thing it had done for the whole of July was one trip to LA and back. But it appears the Johannesburg rotation went well. It then went to San Francisco. It then flew the 293 to Washington Dulles 3 days in a row, and subsequently it's been to Los Angeles and back to Johannesburg. So it really seems to have settled down, and that's great news. Now, it's obviously a slightly separate matter, which is why the maintenance team at Heathrow should have to spend several weeks sorting out an aircraft that BA has just spent millions of pounds on a D-check in Manila. But we'll put that point to one side, and I suppose we can celebrate the fact that X-Ray Lima Echo Bravo is working reliably. So the other thing that I did was just to have a look at sister aircraft X-Ray Lima Echo Alpha, which was the previous aircraft that's been for a D-check, and that just recently broke a very long run of continuous flight operations from Heathrow with a 4-day maintenance visit at Heathrow, which I'm expecting was scheduled maintenance and then resumed traffic. So maybe Echo Alpha and Echo Bravo are performing quite reliably, and although there appear to be consistent problems with getting the aircraft out of Manila to perform reliably in their first few weeks, maybe some evidence that once they sort those teething problems out, the aircraft are actually capable of working much more reliably. Now, I don't know, maybe British Airways have just popped something in my cup of tea and are encouraging me to talk optimistically, but that's the challenge. Now, I'm sure there must be people in BA who are currently saying, what do we need to do with X-Ray Lima Echo Charlie, which is the aircraft that's currently in Manila, to avoid this shambolic pantomime that we've had every time an aircraft comes back from Manila? How do we ensure that whatever they're doing in Lufthansa Technik is sufficiently robust and sufficiently resilient and sufficiently successful that the aircraft can fly back from Manila, have a once over at Heathrow and go into regular service without spending days after days after days out of service like Echo Bravo did? Now, I don't have the answer to that, but I'm sure someone in British Airways has been tasked by Sean Doyle, probably in a meeting with no tea and no biscuits, I suspect, to fix that one. So let's see what happens. No cancellations at all this week, so we can celebrate that. If you're perhaps looking forward to a summer holiday flight out of Heathrow with an Airbus A380, you can maybe face that prospect with a bit more optimism than nervously reaching for your phone and looking on Flight Radar 24 to see what's going on with the A380 fleet. But I have brought you good news about the A380 fleet before, and then it's all just sort of crumbled back into a pile of unpleasantness with lots of cancellations. But we'll keep our fingers crossed. An X-Ray Lima Echo Hotel spent a couple of days out of use. Nothing particularly wrong or unusual about that, but just letting you know what's happening. Heathrow maintenance 23rd to 25th of July. So, well, that's a bit more of a optimistic outlook. So let's have a look at the 777s. 5 aircraft out of use when I did my research on the 25th of July. A couple of the 300 Sierra Tango Bravo Golf Sierra Tango Bravo Alpha at London Heathrow. Victor India uniform out of use at Gatwick for a few days. Yankee Mike Alpha out of use at Gatwick, and Victor India Charlie flew out from Heathrow for some maintenance at Gatwick for 4 days, and 2 aircraft out of use down at Cardiff, which is Yankee Mike Oscar and Sierra Tango Bravo Juliet. So just going back to Victor India Charlie, that flew on the BA 9172, 21st of July from London Heathrow to Gatwick. A bit of maintenance activity. This happens occasionally. I know you'll say, why do you go to Gatwick? There's nothing you can do at Gatwick that you can't do at Heathrow, which I think is sort of true to some extent, but it probably doesn't take account of the actual amount of space available, because there's a lot of aircraft being receiving attention recently at London Heathrow. And then we spoke last time about the drama involving Gatwick-based Yankee Mike Echo, which was, I think, quite a serious incident, BA2203 fumes in the cockpit. But what they did was, about 5 or 6 days later, they flew that aircraft across empty to Heathrow, 21st of July, clearly subjected to some repairs at Heathrow. And while sister ship Yankee Mike Papa was on loan from Heathrow to Gatwick, they've left Yankee Mike Echo at Heathrow. They allocated it on the 23rd of July to the BA229 to Baltimore, but then cancelled the flight shortly before departure, which would have been a bit upsetting for the customers. They obviously had no other aircraft about, but they did use that aircraft to operate that flight on the 24th of July. And then they allocated the aircraft the same pair of flights on the 25th of July, but the aircraft was not serviceable, so they were cancelled. And then it's allocated 2 contradictory flights at Heathrow. So it's a bit unclear about their intentions, but my suspicion is they'll try and get that aircraft back to Gatwick, and then they'll try and get Yankee Mike Papa at Gatwick back to Heathrow. I mean, that aircraft has been busy doing its best to service the Gatwick market, but you have to bear in mind that there's 60 seats missing every time that aircraft operates out of Gatwick, and in the middle of the summer season, that's going to be a bit of a challenge, I think, because there's 48 club seats instead of 32. And that means obviously a lot more space for club and a much higher number of economy seats missing from the aircraft. On the Dreamliner fleet, the 787s, Zulu Bravo Juliet Golf remains out of use. We understand, as we said last time, there's parts being donated to other aircraft. Let's see what happens. 2 aircraft released, which we did mention briefly last time, but Zulu Bravo Juliet Foxtrot did enter service on the BA259 to Riyadh after its return from Cardiff. Zulu Bravo Juliet Hotel flew on the 21st of July back from Cardiff and headed off the next day to Delhi. So quite a big difference. That's 2 of the 12 7878s back in the fleet, replaced down at Cardiff by a 7879 Zulu Bravo Kilo Alpha. So that's quite a significant moment in the Club Suites fitment program, because the 7879s have been a fleet that's not had Club Suites fitted. Now, we need to prepare ourselves for that aircraft to be out of use for quite a long period of time, because BA is still facing quite a challenging process in getting that work signed off and certified. Now, normally what you would have with an aircraft like this undergoing sort of midlife changes is that you'd get on with the work and you'd seek certification from Boeing that the work's been done in a way that's compatible with the, with the airframe and with everything else that it needs to be compliant with. But as I think we've said before, the Federal Aviation Authority over in the United States has withdrawn Boeing's ability to issue such certification, which means you have to go to the FAA directly, which is a much more convoluted and time-consuming process. So what we'll see is that aircraft in the hangar at Gatwick, the work will go on. We know that the first aircraft always takes a bit longer because the team at Cardiff have got to deal with any issues they haven't seen before, and occasionally there might be design issues that have to be worked through. But then once they've finished the work, they have to go through the certification process. If you look at what went on with previous types, it did take sort of 3 or 4 months. So that's my expectation. We won't see Kilo Alpha back until well into the autumn. Now, there is another place on the production line at Cardiff. So my expectation is that Zulu Bravo Juliet India, it might possibly be another aircraft, but one of those 7878s will fly down in the next few days to Cardiff to get on with Club Suites fitment. Now, having said that, there is a possibility at some stage that what BA will do when they know that they've got Rolls-Royce engines available is they'll take Zulu Bravo Juliet Delta from its storage just in front of the hangar. They'll wheel it in. They'll either fit the engines and then fit Club Suites, or they'll fit the Club Suites and then fit the engines and return that aircraft to service, and that will be the next aircraft in the Club Suites program. But I'm not sure when or how that will happen, but we'll keep a close eye on it. And then the other bit of news is Zulu Bravo Kilo November 7879 that remains out of use at Abu Dhabi for maintenance. So improved position, 17% of the Dreamliner fleet out of use, one for Club Suites at Cardiff. We've got 4 aircraft stored with no engines and one other maintenance. Well, that's it. Thanks for joining us on the British Airways Fleet Update. Thanks to everyone in Flyer Talk for their support and information. Thanks to all of you for your YouTube comments. I'll catch you back here on Mark's Trains, Planes and Trams for another update very, very soon.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and click the notification button so you don't miss any of the great trips Mark has coming your way on this YouTube channel.